I mean, I know where mine are at. I'm looking at, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, you moved a little bit towards the end there. You got Dardes,
I got
Artemis
Dardes.
mid. I'm looking at PBM Aphrodite support.
Mm.
Here's the thing. I religiously follow everything that the Smite community says in any avenue that they exist. So Smite, Twitter, YouTube comments, Twitch comments, I read it all, much to my own mental deficit. But with that said, I'll tell you this for a fact. A lot of Smite fans, a lot of Jade Dragons fans don't really like when Mike hops on the Aphrodite. Okay,
really?
It just hasn't been doing the most for him. And it also feels like it's a little bit counter to his own personal philosophy on pressure out of duo lane. Feels like a Freya Aphrodite lane is going to struggle pretty significantly in that regard. So, the Highland Ravens with a composition like this that scales incredibly well come late game should also have pressure in duo. Feels like this is one of the Highland Ravens with a much more simplified first 15 or so minutes. I mean, even, look at that Bastion. It's almost dead.
That Bastion took like 4 autos, but I mean, at this point, you're absolutely right on the pressure. And the story of the ADC mages, I think, may come back to sort of spite us in this game in particular, because you see the pressure they've got, maybe a 2v2 favor over towards the Highland Ravens, but this is one that I think it was you talking about. As soon as these supports leave the lane, Vote, the Freya maybe gets that pressure benefit onto the Yola run, and Zatman, he's one that's been known to like to find those fights.
Yeah, Zatman has been a very boxing-focused hunter in the past. I think against the Freya, though, you just have to show respect in the lane. There's potential for Olaron to play outside of Freya's range and just poke out, play a very passive style. I imagine that's what we'll see once the supports start to move a little bit more so towards the center of the map. Otherwise, and this is something every interview will tell you from the SPL, games are decided by the jungle. Lanes are almost always decided by the jungler as well. One of these junglers playing a little bit less orthodox. That's Surtur for Scream. I'll be excited to see how that interacts here, especially this early rotation.
Both of them on the left
Good
side
stun.
of the map. Good stun on the Blinking Blast. The slow is there, and the dual lane rotation is as well. ABM with a little bit of damage, but no follow-up onto that dash from Herwind. We saw a lot of shield buff focus yesterday as well during the Highland Ravens set. Consistent performance from Scream to try and be here, fight over that shield buff, and find some pressure in this dual lane. And certainly, I think he might have the player to do it again. Zatman, not one that we saw yesterday on the Yellow Run, but I think it was banned out in all 3 of their games that was going up against the Gladiators. This time, I mean, arguably the lane that you want to be putting pressure into and having some focus on if you're Scream.
I mean, both sides probably want to put some pressure over towards that dual lane, facilitating or shutting down your ally or enemy magical hunter. One of the most valuable things you can get done throughout the early. But with that said, Scream's also got a very clean target in the center of the map. It's a build path that we haven't exactly seen too often. When I think of Ability Hunter Artemis, Transcendence comes to mind. Looks to me like he's got lifesteal on the brain, though. With that said, it still is an Artemis. I mean, Artemis is still largely immobile, only has that CC immunity available in the ultimate, otherwise a movement speed stim thanks to the Vengeful Assault. It's not really the greatest interaction point up against Scream, who will likely force Artemis ultimate just from his own ult, and then immediately afterward that long-range stun should make it very easy for Ven to follow up.
Now we did see this Artemis, or rather the Runeforged Hammer, get a couple of buffs in 10-10. You expect to see that from the I'd like the Artemis build. You get like I've seen it, man. I've seen it in my ranked games. The full ability damage, and then you just like have the still target passive, and you trap them, and nobody can play the game. Like, is that?
You want it on art? Is that what you're saying to me?
I'm just saying I've seen it before, man. Like, is that? I would expect the trans in that type of build, but like, what is the mid Artemis build?
I would imagine it's a whole lot of just yellow numbers, maybe a Crusher pickup, Heartseeker, Titan's Bane comes to mind as well. Just percent penetration, make sure your abilities are coming online frequently. Jotun's Wrath comes to mind too. If you get really lucky with the Jungle Mask, get the blue one, you can get your Suppress the Insolent, and that's the third ability for Artemis, on about a 6-second cooldown once you have it fully stacked up in CDR. So really high poke potential. So just leveraging it in towards abilities, I think, pretty significant. If there were to be a hammer pickup, I'd prefer to see it from something like Thor. I'm just not the biggest hammer fan on the planet. Feels like very few gods get to leverage it easily. But because of how Thor's damage applies off the back of massive individual chain CC, he's chain CCing off of his own abilities.
Yeah.
It makes you a little bit easier to actually find that value in the passive.
seen Rune Forge Hammer come into play in a couple of solo lane picks already this weekend, and we'll see how those builds round out. On the other side of the mid lane, you get a much more standard pick in this Baba Yaga from Venenu. And if I recall correctly, this was something that Venenu tried to pick last weekend, but only back, I think she was competitively banned, a bug with her, and now back in the game after they fixed it in 10.10. But something that the Highland Ravens were trying to play and now can finally play.
Yeah, I mean, Baba Yaga, a lot of people were projecting her to fit very well into the current meta, where there are a lot of compositions that play heavily on dive. Baba Yaga can be a part of that dive, but simultaneously has very good counter dive in of herself. Just, oh, you jumped on me, got into melee range, I'll just go to the home sweet home, HP shield, walk away, drop damage on my feet, and also have that knockback to help out a little bit as well. So Baba Yaga was good before. I think she's still going to be very good right now. One of her primary strengths is exclusive to her as well, just having that additional stacking potential. Purple Invade attempted there, the Highland Ravens make out like bandits. Just use the Sanctified Field for escape. Not sure that was really necessary, but if there was any potential to chase, immediately squashed by Zatman.
Yeah, that's quite the statement. That's like, we don't want to fight here. We're done with
and
the engagement. We got the purple buff. We're ready to go. And that's maybe even saying how slow they're willing to play this game. That's like a 120-second cooldown. It'll be up by the time the next purple comes up, but I mean, Zatman's not looking to fight anywhere on the left side of the map up until that ultimate's going to be back online. So that's certainly a big cooldown to use, and maybe signifies that they're prioritizing the farm, maybe don't want to find any fights in this first section of the game.
Yeah, and I mean, why would you want to fight into the Aphrodite lane anyway? Not even taking into account the boxing potential that Freya has on her own. Any damage you do to her is just going to get re-sustained.
Oh my goodness, Lasbra down to half HP already. Does have the batter to hell if he needs to get out of this one, but the teleport, this could signal a re-engage, but it's actually Haddix who comes over early and vote that both ultimates get channeled. You waste the Undying Love a little bit, but it's not a waste if you get out alive. So they burn both dual lane ultimates once again for the escape, and it's actually Haddix who ends up wasting the teleport a bit.
I mean, is it even a waste? 90 seconds on the teleport timer. It's not just Undying Love. It's not just Valkyrie's Discretion. He also got beads. Haddix was in that engagement for maybe 10 seconds and had massive impact. He'll head back to lane. I believe he misses out on 3 minions there. The melees died at the tower, but the archers still available to collect the experience from. So long as the rest of the Highland Ravens can do something in the dual lane within the next 2-3 minutes, I'd argue Haddix, that is a phenomenal rotation.
Yeah, this purple buff timer, my eyes are on it over on the left-hand side. If they want to rotate a jungler, maybe even rotate Venenu over, trying to start a fight on the left-hand side of the map. But both junglers be on the right-hand side. It's going to be that 2v2. It might turn into a fight around this blue buff instead. They don't know that Lasbra's here behind him. Hopefully some of the cooldowns coming out. Lasbra's waiting for the right opportunity. The blink in, and Haddix immediately up into the air. The damage is not enough, and he will get out on the escape. He won't even steal the blue buff, and they might get punished on the back end. Nika is a victim of the mid-rotation, and Venenu grabs first blood.
Man, Haddix barely survives that engagement. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side, Zatman and Hurrywin team up together, steal away the purple buff once more. That's that pressure we were talking about just a moment ago. Oleron just has so much advantage on clearing wave that you're going to see that pretty frequently. What a dangerous situation here. Zatman always willing to use that Sanctified Field. Again, it speaks to what you were saying. An indication of the unwillingness of the Highland Ravens to play in the actual fight on the left-hand side of the map. They got their purple buff invade. They're winning fights on the right-hand side. Zatman says, I'm going to scale into the late game no matter what. I'm not exactly pressed to get a whole lot done right now. But maybe that's starting to frustrate Vote a bit. That Valkyrie's Discretion, very wishful thinking.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about how Oleron maybe loses the 1v1. You don't have to worry about that if it's never a 1v1.
It hasn't been one yet.
The supports just have chosen not to rotate out of the left lane. And so far, I think it's been benefiting the Ravens. Purple buff invade after purple buff invade. And I would be down for them to even set out a Sanctified Field to steal it. Because it's really hard to, you know, lose a steal if you're doing it inside your own Sanctified Field. But they so far, they've only had to use it as an escape button.
Yeah, it's a little bit more difficult to utilize it aggressively. When you're trying to take space, Sanctified Field, you kind of drop it. And that's the indication of the space that you're going to play in. Whereas using it defensively, I mean, you can use it as an escape path. You could really lock down anything that Jade Dragons want to do in their own chase down. So I imagine for the most part, it's similar to how we talk about Sanctified Field around objectives. You want to be in the defensive position to get the full value of that ability. So I think Zatman's usage, although maybe unnecessary at times, it may be a bit superfluous. He's fully subscribed to the better safe than sorry mentality.
Scream, a little pressure there in mid, and Heroin looking like he wants the positioning as well, and that might be signs that we've reached closer to this mid-game point, and certainly Highland Ravens leading us to that point. 10 minutes, 30 seconds in, about a 2,000 gold lead, and it's all been gained passively, it feels like. Small purple buff invades, the one first blood off of the blue buff invade attempt on the right-hand side, and the objectives are ripe for the pressure, and I think Highland Ravens, they've got the reins in this game. If they want to force an objective, it feels like it's going to be on them to do so in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how Scream starts to play these next few moments, because this is the point of the game before some of the most recent buffs to Surtur, we would really start to struggle. Starts to fall behind a little bit in potential damage output, scaling a little bit lower than his assassin contemporaries. So seems to me he's got eyes for a little bit more protections, wants to be an initiator, stay in that front line, leverage the self-sustain that Surtur's got, and just act as another annoyance. Also, we have seen for the most part just a whole lot of stuns from range. Please follow up. Like, Ven, you got a potion locked in? Let's use that here, and that seems to be the general mentality of Scream. I think it really does play well into Scream's ability to king protect come late game as well. Just watch that, man. Once the 5-on-5 starts to happen, I think we're due for one sooner rather than later, with the Gold Fury becoming a very viable target for both these teams. I imagine it's Scream in the front line, Zatman hanging out in the back, and the Jade Dragons just scrambling, trying to figure out how they're going to close that gap.
Well, I want to double down on what you just said, because that's a prophetic cloak second item for Scream coming out. Yesterday, we saw him go the Sekhmets, which another healing item, still benefits the aggression, but like, Scream is just trying to be a third frontline.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to stack it up relatively easily. The only thing I could see him struggling with is maybe getting some of those magic stacks. It's going to be difficult for him to rotate over towards the duo lane to collect it from Vote and PBM, but physical defense will come very easily, and then in the team fight, things can simplify a little bit later on. First Stygian Beacon goes over to the Chaos side. Highland Ravens, little fanfare there. Not much fight back from the Jade Dragons, who are starting to really slowly bleed out the map. 3,000, so quick.
Vote finds Scream a little bit, knocks him down, but this is the benefit of the Surtur. He gets into the air. He is so safe to adjust with that ultimate, but you see the immediate response. Highland Ravens had his back if he wanted to go in. You get the teleport out of Hedix, and I called the other one a waste. Maybe that one truly, there's truly no engage. Hedix just uses the TP and is forced to walk back to solo, but I mean, you can see it. The Highland Ravens, they are gearing for an engage. Like, there was no hesitation there. Hedix just pressed the button.
Yeah, just saw contact on the left-hand side, said if a fight does happen, I should likely be there for it. But Scream dropped a little bit too low before that ultimate's fully channeled. Doesn't want to dunk back in on his own. Hasn't stacked up that prophetic cloak just yet, so frontline goals for the late game, not quite there just yet. He has the potential, though, with all the self-sustain to box out for a while here.
Missed all three ultimates there on Nika, but the dunk in, and Hedix does not miss the same way. Heroin rotated over as well. And Lasbra, that's the retreat button as Polar Bear Mike comes in with the heals. Small engage. Lasbra looks like he was looking for the 1v1 there into Scream, maybe looking for the the backup from Hedix, rather, or from Nika. But it was Hedix who came in with the ultimate. And Jade Dragons, I mean, it's good that they're trying to find stuff, but I agree with what you said. I mean, it just kind of feels like they're struggling to stem the bleeding. They're kind of just waiting for it to happen to them.
Oh, small skirmish on the left-hand side. Zatman forced to truthfully use that ultimate defensively. Loses out on the beads as well. Nice banish from Vote. It's a lot of resources lost now. It's not the easiest thing on the planet for Lasbra to make that rotation either. Doesn't have the same level of global presence as Scream or Hedix does, but still should be able to connect a good deal of damage given an opportunity. Opportunities for the Jade Dragons, though. Gold Tree pulled out. And Ravens seem to have known that was going to be the play regardless, with Zatman as weak as he is now.
This would have to be a steal. Heroin has got the ultimate. Jade Dragons, though, they secure the Gold Fury trading for the Pyromancer. That's at least going to help stem the bleeding for the time being.
Wait, hold on. Scream. All right, he's got it. I thought he didn't have a recipe for a second. That was our graphic covering it up, so we're fine. Don't gotta clown him just yet. You know, we're a little bit further in the SPL now. I feel like recipes, we should have the muscle memory for it by now. We certainly do. I agree, though, with the pacing of this game. It is very interesting. The Jade Dragons, though, have done a good job closing up a good deal of the deficit established throughout. Experience, certainly the more important of the two as of right now. Doubling up on the golds. The Howland Ravens advantage there. But the experience is traded across the board. It's not as if the Howland Ravens are winning cleanly. You got 1 level deficit for Scream in the jungle, so Lazarus certainly doing significantly more damage right now. But 2 levels for Ven in mid, and we have not seen Ven get active too much just yet. I'm thinking that's going to be a massive problem that the Jade Dragons have left unaddressed for the last 15 minutes. That problem's going to present itself very shortly.
Yeah, it is 15 minutes into the game, and Ben is level 17. He is on track for the 20 by 20 level method, and he certainly could find it with the efficiency of Lazarus under some pressure here. The left-hand mid Harpies will get the backup there, but it might be a turnaround. They want to take this fight. Zatman on this side of the map as well. Forced to jump away though. And these are the types of engagements that we continue to see. Couple ultimates dropped in mid as well. It's just these small poke skirmishes, but I mean, until we get a scenario where everybody drops ultimate all at once, it is hard to find any of these like small picks.
Yeah, both teams have very strong disengage potential, so either side it's just about poking, prodding, burning through resources. It's almost a war of attrition even in the poke battle here. Can we get rid of the beads? Can we get rid of the ultimates? Is Aegis still available? If yes, it's just about getting those and then backing out. Was a bit of a questionable Dharmic Pillar from Hurrywin, especially against Dardes, who just has perfect answer to it every time in the vengeful assault. But at the end of the day, you have to be willing to use those abilities and be willing to miss them sometimes as well, just trying to force out some sort of advantage come team fight time. I just don't really see either team having an easy in here. Scream will rotate through, but they're fast and healthy.
Rotation over, Vote forced into the beads as well, does have the Valkyrie's discretion, who wants to use it, but holds it for the whole engagement, it feels like, and that was necessary. If he had used it earlier, he would have been taken down, but instead, he's able to survive just barely. The Undying Love combines with the safety from Freya, and he gets on out of there.
Yeah, it's the sustain from PBM, the safety of Freya, the additional movement speed from the Kiss, the Beads Aegis in kit, as well as having Beads Aegis legitimately. Now, without Valkyrie's discretion and the Beads, Vote really just reliant on that Aegis. Could be an easy target going forward. Mike as well has to expend both of his relics, so next rotation from the Ravens maybe hits Patered around that duo lane. And considering the timing of it, I think smart from the Ravens. Gold Freeze up within the minute. Make another play over there, see if you can force him back. You don't even have to kill Vote. Just force him back as you just did. Back up towards that Fury to burn pretty quick. I'd like to see a little bit more anti-heal sooner rather than later for the Howland Ravens. I know Scream really is got a whole lot of eyes on this hyper tanky build, but a Brawler Speed Stick would go a long way into this Aphrodite.
A lot of positioning here on the left-hand side, and no surprise to see that, considering the Oni Fury rather, about to spawn. Scream, focus here, Dardes drops ult alone onto 2. Just loses the Caledonian for a little bit of poke onto Scream, but you know, he'll be able to walk back just about in time for this Gold Fury. Seems like they've lost yet another tool, but I'm not sure they're going to try and force anything out too fast other than this Pyromancer. And that's the rotation from Nika. Nobody here and no response from the Highland Ravens onto the Gold Fury. The Jade Dragons get away with one.
Vote's playing pretty far up. Dash connects. Has that ultimate available still, so it'd be very difficult to knock him down.
Throw in the air.
I mean, good luck.
He's got to hit the max range ultimate, and he does not. But Scream, they are committed to this kill, man. They have got to use everything onto Vote.
It is.
And there's the re-engage, though. If the Jade Dragons want to find something, they have to do it now. They force the beads off of Zatman. Lazarus here as well, and Dardes is making the rotation. But it's the Sanctified Field that catches 2 and forces the retreat from the Jade Dragons. Zatman holds on to it in perfect timing, and they're up a member for this Oni Fury.
Yeah, Zatman using it as a contingency tool there. I thought the fight had gone on for so long. Surely we want to dilate some time. Zatman says, hold on. I'm going to wait for Lazarus blink. I'm going to wait for the full engage. And then force the Jade Dragons back. It's another escape route for the Howland Ravens. Find your individual pick. Immediately back up towards that Fury. Vote nearly survives, or nearly buys enough time, I should say, for the rotation from his team. But the Highland Ravens just a bit faster. They've been playing incredibly fast on that left side of the map. That's maybe the 4th, 5th, 6th rotation from Haddix.
Where is Dardes? He's up in the enemy jungle. Thought he was maybe in more danger than he actually was. Venenu has reached that level 20 mark right before the level 20 minute into the game, so certainly feeling the power of that farm coming through for the Baba Yaga. And I still am not sure that he ulted for the first blood, right? That was it. I think that's the only time we've seen him ult. He's just been farming.
Yeah, hasn't really had a whole lot of fight coming his way. I mean, Artemis isn't really the best at all-inning Baba Yaga, so there hasn't been a whole lot of fighting there. Just hang back, poke out. If a jungler walks through the lane, I'll let my team know that they could back up and continue to hang out, I suppose. Then certainly getting the better end of it, as you said. Dardes still starting to approach that 20 slot. Bluestone's so important for this Artemis build. You need Suppress the Insolent to be a strong tool, and right now, I mean, it's doing like 300 damage to squishier targets, but that Bluestone will put it to the next level. So the Jade Dragon's just waiting on that 1-level power spike for Dardes. Where's the Highland Ravens? They're strong. They've got a small lead, but it's not enough that you could just say, all right, let's force a fight on the Fire Giant. Let's start sieging some of these towers. You need to find something first, and Mike playing spoiler to the majority of aggression for the Ravens has essentially removed that opportunity. The Ravens have to work doubly hard on every single one of their ganks. Aphrodite just incredibly annoying.
I gotta say, I came in, I was energized for this game.
That's right, you were.
It is.
For shadow boxing, it was crazy.
2 minutes, or 21 minutes, and 2 kills, and it's because of engagements exactly like that. The Highland Ravens press the go button, and the Jade Dragons press every disengage button they have, which is like 7 of them. They've got a lot of disengage buttons, and so far, I mean, the Highland Ravens, they've got like a 1,500 gold lead, you know, 1,000 plus. It's been 2,000 as well. It's sort of been bouncing up and down. But I mean, this game's going to come down to one of those larger objective fights, because nobody can find an advantage in these picks or in these buff invades. It's going to have to be one of these bigger fights.
Yeah, I could see the entirety of this game being dictated by this Fire Giant play right now. The Highland Ravens there first. It's not exactly burning fast. Now the Zatman's closed gap. Go quick.
He gets popped. Sanctifying Field onto the Fire Giant. Nika, he's in there with the ultimate, but it would have to be a steal attempt if Nika wants to take it away, and they do not. Highland Ravens secure the Fire Giant. 22 minutes in, and the chase is on as well. Undying Love only immunes one of the ultimates, can't immune the second, and Venenu grabs onto Dardes as Nika is forced to dash the wrong way, trying to find some safety, and immunes the stun as well. Tier 1 tower looking to be the dive target if the Highland Ravens want the action, but they do not. They will take a step back, but grab one in the Fire Giant.
Highland Ravens, it's Fire Giant, easy grab, Sanctified Field, no play zone. Jade Dragons have to watch from a distance. They see the objective burn down. Afterward, it's the chase of the double global between Scream and Haddix that really makes it happen for the Ravens. Dardes pays the iron price. Plenty of disengage on the entirety of the Jade Dragons, but when it's split 5 ways, not exactly the easiest to peel out for everyone. Unfortunately for Dardes, it was him on the chopping block. Now it's the Ravens with Fire Giant on all 5, and we get a real look at some siege potential. The Jade Dragons will have to answer the question of how the 5-on-5 looks. Tier 1 towers, let those go. Tier 2 towers, probably a soft defense. Unlikely that the Jade Dragons overcommit there. But I don't even particularly like the Jade Dragons base defense. You've got a non-standard mid laner, so Dardes not exactly the best at just keeping the waves out. Now that he's ticked over to level 20, Bluestone's going to be really good at poking enemy gods, but the minions are probably going to get into those birds or the tier 2s relatively easily. Even Freya going to struggle a bit to stay effective in these team fights. Single target gods really do struggle in situations like this. And then who's initiating the fight? We talk about the Jade Dragons base defense in the past. It's always, oh, best defense, good offense, right? We'll just get a multi-man taunt, or Mike's going to do a massive bit of damage. On Aphrodite, you got a single stun, you got a slow. That's about it. So Nika gonna have to do a whole lot of the heavy lifting on disruption factor. Amaterasu's survivable, certainly threatening. He's upgraded that starter item, but not sure how much he's gonna get done on his own.
As far Nika's been there with the ultimate, but struggling to find the absolute value that they've been looking for. Sticking around on this right-hand side is Nika, actually trying to push down this tier 2 tower. And we'll have to see, I mean, this siege feels, it still doesn't feel dominant, right? Nobody really still feels like they're in a huge lead or have the reins in this game. Yeah, sure, they got the Fire Giant,
On
but
a 5.
it wasn't in a fight. Like they just kind of snuck it away, played the macro game, and there's certainly value to that. But I mean, the Jade Dragons actually still leading in towers. They still have a tier 1 tower up. All 3 of their tier 2 towers are full HP, and we only have 1 more minute on this Fire Giant buff. They're gonna trade Titans in mid lane, but the Highland Ravens still hesitant to pull any type of trigger, find the fight. Like I've seen it before, but it has been a minute since like anybody has ever won a game purely on macro.
No, it does not happen often. At the end of the day, you're going to have to kill at least 2 or 3 targets in a team fight, right, to have the opportunity to actually deal some damage towards that Titan, and the Highland Ravens running into that wall right now. An incredibly passive play with that Fire Giant. Knocked down the tier 1 tower in mid, I believe, but otherwise, all tier 2 still standing. Grab some neutral objectives, push your a little bit further, but
Tower and right.
You gotta think they could have done a bit more. Maybe it was that pressure from Nika that keeps the Highland Ravens guessing. We saw a few rotations from Scream and Haddix over towards that soul lane to stop Nika from knocking down the tier 2. But leave them there. Go ahead, push somewhere else. Force a rotation to generate threat that Nika has to respond to, rather than rotate over towards him and then spend 20 seconds chasing the fastest god in Smite. You're just simply not going to lock down Amaterasu, or not easily anyway. So it's the Highland Ravens. Fire Giant power play officially coming to an end here. A whole lot done.
Well, I mean, at this point, if you're the Jade Dragons, you're calling that a dub. You're saying, we lost the Fire Giant. We lost 2 tier 1 towers. That's a shame. That is unfortunate, but it's given us 5 minutes to get our builds a little bit more online, to get that farm up. And now, I mean, I'm looking at these item spikes. Sure, a lot of players still have recipes online, but the only player who's really making advantage of it is that Obshard on Ven. He's the only one that's gotten to 6 items, and he's certainly a threat, but the Jade Dragons, if they were looking for those upgraded starter spikes, they've gotten it here now on this next Fire Giant. Yeah,
so significant power spikes for Lasbra, whose really entire job is just to shut down Zatman. Camazot's uniquely suited at dealing with that. Zatman, of course, ever the veteran, knows exactly who's got eyes for him, decides to get a little bit of defense in the tail end of his build. Silver Breastplate, likely Valor, whenever he gets a little bit more gold there. Or if he gets the opportunity. Look at this grouping from the Highland Ravens. 5 stacked towards the center of the map, but Nika's got the flank.
Lasbra has to jump away. Some pressure there from Scream in the mid lane.
Here comes.
Into the air, and Dawn. The focus is on to Mike, and Undying Love is burned early in the fight. And Nika's separated off to the right-hand side, but Mike, he steps up alone and gets trapped by the Dharmic Pillars. They find the pick that they were looking for, and on to the Fire Giant they look. The vision is here for the objective.
It is, but the Jade Dragon's still nearby. Vote's got to play real safe, though. No ultimate makes him an easy target. The second he exposes himself to the Ravens, I gotta think it's just a turn and burn call.
Esper and Dardes still have those ultimates available. Looking for the ultimate here onto Scream. They're going to try and turn things around, but he makes the perfect amount of space, and the Fire Giant goes to the Ravens. They find the fight they were looking for. Nika is late on the teleport back in, and they disengage once again. It's 1 kill equals Fire Giant twice now for the Ravens.
I don't know what you can say on the Jade Dragons to change up the pacing of these engagements. So often it's the Highland Ravens making contact first. Dardes perhaps the first target. Okay, we got Caledonian Boar. Vote's a little bit too far forward. Nice, I just grabbed Valkyrie's Discretion. And then after the Jade Dragons say, well, we can't fight anymore. Our defensive tools are down. Our CC lockdown has taken a massive hit. Dardes is maybe the most important bit of CC on the team. As far as AoE is concerned, Caledonian Boar a little bit easier to hit 3 or 4 people as opposed to just the dazzling offensive. And so the Jade Dragons, in not getting the jump on the engagement, essentially lose out on it. The Highland Ravens clearly cognizant of it. Grab the Fire Giant immediately afterward. We're going to push a little bit more neutral objectives. But I don't want to see a repeat of the last Fire Giant. Now's the time to actually start playing around it.
Scream loses the ultimate, but look at the positioning here onto Dardes. He's got the movement speed. They might try to catch him. I don't know if he has beads. Not in range.
The trap, though.
Before the trap has to hit, and it will, and Scream will fall down, but the re-engage might be here. Haddix with the ultimate hits 2, and the Dharmic Pillars dropped onto 3. The rotation in from the Highland Ravens is not enough. You'll lose a couple of ultimates, but Scream taken down. That's a huge pick for the Dragons.
I'm thinking we're looking at a repeat of the previous Fire Giant. The Highland Ravens Scream, I should say, just a little bit too far forward there. An easy pickup for the Jade Dragons, who had incredibly aggressive positioning on map there. Even I didn't realize, and I've got the bird's eye view with perfect knowledge on the mini-map, that Dardes was that far forward and that prepared to make a rotation over towards the Soul Lane. So 20 seconds to Grayscale to think about that mistake. Pray that it doesn't get worse. Hurry, Zap, and Ven on base defense. Can't exactly keep that flimsy tier 2 tower up. The Jade Dragons now can leverage all that movement speed to go ahead and disengage. PBM gives over a little, Nika gives over a ton. Good luck chasing them down.
The Jade Dragons are the ones that have pretty much, it feels like they've gotten a little bit more on this Fire Giant power play, and they're not the ones with the Fire Giant, but they take down a pick, they take down a tier 2. And my question is, if you're the Jade Dragons and you're comfortable doing that, you've got the aggressive positioning, you find a pick, you find a tier 2, why are we not being aggressive on the Fire Giant? Well, like, what's going on in the Fire Giant fight?
It's probably got something to do with how difficult it is to play in a Zapman's ultimate, how hard it is to take space against this Highland Ravens team. It's a completely different beast of, let's take a 5-on-5 in neutral territory, or let's catch Scream getting hyper-aggressive on his own on the right-hand side of the map. It's a much more difficult call to make, especially the deficit the Jade Dragons are currently playing into. They essentially gifted +1 over to the Jade Dragons. The Highland Ravens keeping it interesting for us. This slow death, 1,000 cuts, feels like the Highland Ravens were in a much more significant winning position earlier.
Yep.
But having given over 10, 15 additional minutes to the Jade Dragons, gold starts to lose its value over time. Everybody's 6-slotted now. We're just about there. Everybody's upgrading their relics now as well. Potion's going to be the difference maker, maybe in a few moments, 5-6 minutes. We'll talk about elixirs as well. But once we cross that 35-minute threshold, Smite, for the most part, unless you are absolutely dominating the game, it's going to equalize. We're going to see parity between these teams. With that said, in a state of parity over the last 32 minutes, the Jade Dragons have not won out on a single team fight engagement. Not a single one. It's been the Highland Ravens every time when they're grouped up as 5. Just a little bit better initiation, just a little bit better poke, better control of neutral area. Jade Dragons need to find their answers. I think it has to come down to Lazarus positioning. Where's he at? Is he able to close gap onto Zapman? If yes, how do the Highland Ravens respond? Does it continue to dive anyway, or is it peel back? And once you start to introduce those layers of entropy, the game can diversify a bit. But so far, we've seen the same engagement every time. Highland Ravens make contact first, burn resources, eventually all in afterward.
Anything interesting popping out to you in the builds? There's one for me.
Well, you know, don't keep us in suspense.
There's 5 kills total in this game. There's only one god in the game that could have a stacked Charon's coin at this point.
That's true.
And it
That's
is indeed Venenu on this Fabio. While we're talking about builds, though, of course, just as we start, Haddix takes a ton of focus on the left-hand side, and that's the engagement they needed. Highland Ravens looking for the re-engage. Scream gets the beats forced, and both Solo and Jungle go into the air looking for the re-engage. That needs help, but he doesn't find it, but the team finds the trade, and it's a 1-for-1, and Venenu's chasing him down.
It's 4-man retreat from the Jade Dragons, but Lazra maybe going to be the only one on the chopping block here. The Dragons just have so much disengage, Frog. It's so difficult to actually secure some of these kills. That's a stain. Really starting to stack up. 6-slot Brawler Speed Stick for Scream's going to help out a good deal there, but even then, it's starting to feel like the defense shared from Mike is keeping these squishier targets just outside of kill threshold. The Highland Ravens, this time around, licking their wounds, still weak, are going to be on the defensive around the Fire Giant.
They're on the back foot to start. Haddix gets the beads forced away. It'll be another defensive relic lost, and it's looking like a relic graveyard for both of these sides here. But the Jade Dragons, both of their carries holding on still to those relics, and that's given them the confidence to pick up the Fire Giant down to about 60% HP early to start this one up, and all ultimates back available other than the carries for the Jade Dragons. Gets down to half HP. They do not remain the confidence to keep holding on to that one. This game feels like it's on a nice edge.
It is. And the Fire Giant play, I was giving it a lot of weight early on, but considering the Highland Ravens, having grabbed it twice, have not really got a whole lot done with it. Maybe Enhanced Fire Giant's a difference maker, but it really is hard to say. I'd love to see what a Siege looks like. We haven't just yet. Seems like the Jade Dragons just on the back foot have had just enough proactive play from them to keep the Highland Ravens guessing. Zadman holds on to Sanctified Field in the last team fight. That's a major difference maker, and now with 30 seconds left on both his relics coming off cooldown, certainly has a target on his back. But neither side confident in their ability to do Fire Giant in the face of the other. Neither side willing to coin toss because neither team's really got a confirmation character. Means that it's going to come down to the team fight first. And in positions like this in competitive Smite, it is such an advantage to act second. You want the Fire Giant hitting whoever first. You don't want it acting as an unofficial 6-man against you. And so it's that unwillingness to pull Fire Giant that locks us into this current stalemate. Both teams just towing the line saying, oh, you won't pull it, and they're both right.
36 minutes into this one, and a grand total of 7 kills speaks to the pace that both of these teams are willing to play. And it's really been since minute 1. We saw First Blood, I think, at like minute 7 or something, and even then it only stayed at 1 kill for many, many minutes after that. Even now, they're unwilling to face each other. They're just standing on the beacon, man. Nobody wants to be the one caught out first. Nobody wants to press the trigger and have that be the fight that loses them the game. And that's certainly the territory we're in now. We are in 1-fight territory. Not a 2-for-1 or a 2-for-0 or anything like the fights we've been seeing.
2-for-0 might be pretty good.
Comparatively to what we've been seeing, maybe so. But I mean, we are certainly in a 4-man or a 5-man, a deicide. I mean, that is game-winning territory. At 36 minutes into the game, you don't even need the EFG.
No, you don't. A clean wipe for other side. It's just GG here. Elixir of Defense now picked up for Haddock, so 50 additional protections both ways will make it a little bit more difficult to lock him down. That set between Freya and Artemis. Feels like the burn potential is certainly there regardless. Will there be a burn opportunity, though, as both teams spin their wheel in the jungle? Doesn't seem to be the case. Pyromancer, an easier target, not exactly as threatening, so certainly willing to pull it. On Ravens, easy pickup. Good poke as well. Nika's got plenty of sustain on his own. Mike's kissed him. All right, that guy's full HP. I don't even need to look at him again. Either side can find an advantage.
Highland Ravens are the ones to pick up the Fire Giant, though, and the positioning is here for them. The Jade Dragons looking to fight back. Let's hop into a listening with the Dragons. Here I'm calling out the relics, but it's that type of fight. I'm throwing it into a listen-in as if we're going to ever see one of those, like,
you gotta wait for someone to
fights.
die, right? Like, once one's down, we know which team's gonna be pushing and how long they'll be pushing for. Defensive positioning now taken up by the Jade Dragons. Fire Giant pit controlled by the Order side. I need to see literally anything else now. This dance has continued for upwards of 10 minutes. There are plenty of opportunities on map to break the stalemate. Both soul laners having elected pick up teleport means that they could just go ahead and leave and try and pressure either a side lane or the mid lane and then teleport to a team fight if it happens. We see that so frequently. It's almost just a bit of a bait. Okay, well, you can pull Fire Giant. We don't have all 5 people here. Neither team's quite willing to do that just either. Would really much rather use that teleport as a secondary life, take the fight, be forced back to base, immediately teleport back in. It just feels like with both teams essentially getting nothing done over the last 10 minutes, anything to shift the tide would be valuable to either side. It almost speaks to the confidence of both these teams. We don't need to split the map. We're going to win out on the engagement regardless. Major win there for the Highland Ravens, just as I say it. Lazra, now without beads.
Pull over Mike, look at Dardet. They're behind the entire Ravens side. Now the Dharmic Pillars comes out, all the ultimates get dropped, and Lazarus the first to fall. Dardet follows him, but a trade back from both, and it's a 2-for-1 thus far. The Ravens still grouped and aggressing on Tanika. Scream has to use the beads and may chase down the soul laner, but it's the 2-for-3, 2-for-1 rather, that they're trying to turn things around. A 3-kill swing for the Ravens, and they're still on the chase.
Surely if Nika just walks straight, he outpaces Scream there, but because he tries juking back and forth over a wall, Scream doesn't have to make any distance to that ultimate. So Nika loses out entirely on the 1v1 up against Scream in the center of the map. Meanwhile, Dardes and PBM, sick of the stalemate, clearly try and make something happen on their own. Lazarus gets involved, jumps into the Sanctified Field. I believe before jumps to finish channeling because of time dilation, immediately dies, so doesn't even get the bat out of hell off. And it's the Highland Ravens now, having gifted one just earlier, the Jade Dragons gifted one themselves. This time, though, it's the Enhanced Fire Giant as a reward. Fortunately for the Jade Dragons, priority target Ven taken off the map means he won't be benefiting from it. Unfortunately for the Jade Dragons is this late in the game, EFG, I really only care about Zatman having it. His ability to just burn moving structures. We'll see though. The Highland Ravens have been in the driver's seat before. Twice, thrice this game. Fire Giant hasn't really got a whole lot done. This time around, Tier 2 tower standing. I'll move the goalpost as close to him as possible. Let's just get rid of that one.
Just find the last remaining Tier 2 tower. The Highland Ravens looking to have a more successful siege here with the EFG. I would like to point out, we are 40 minutes into the game, and Scream has 21 stacks on that prophetic cloak. So he's really...
it's hard to get the magic stacks, man. It really is.
He's really getting in there. I don't think there's a way that we can see on broadcast what stacks he has. I don't think there's a way on Spectator to do that. But I would imagine you're correct. It is difficult to get in there onto Vote or onto PBM. Oftentimes it's what he had last time. It's just fighting Nika in the front line. Easy to get those physical stacks. This positioning though, they're almost baiting themselves. They're playing discipline, sure. I'm worried about Scream in the right lane though.
Yeah, Scream's not worried though. Has beads in just about 10 seconds. Blink available currently, and ultimate up. Means that barring a concentrated effort from 2 or 3 members, Nika is certainly significant here with the additional movement. Oh man, Scream might just be dead.
There's a concentrated effort here from 2 or 3 members. There.
You gotta get a Phoenix though. He has to buy time.
He has to buy enough time and channel that ultimate if he wants to get.
Oh
my gosh! That damage on the Lasbra, and the Batter to Hell gets forced early on. But Nika with the teleports, it's not enough. They lose the left side Phoenix, and we were saying you can't win a game on macro play, but you can certainly take a Phoenix. And the Highland Ravens do just that. They might even get 2 as Haddix and Scream push on in. The ultimate coming through though, and Scream, no ultimate for safety, but it's just making space, and they'll lose the mid Phoenix as well.
Gotta fully disengage here. Sanctified Field being gone means that's your team fight lost. Beats Force from Haddix, wall for Peel, but the chase is there. Nika will keep the team incredibly fast. The Highland Ravens might need to sacrifice one.
Speed here, Aura on Nika, as they're going to try and chase this one down the mid lane. Lasbra is not stopping, and the W key button is firmly pressed on the keyboard up until they get to the Tier 2 tower. That's the stopping point, at least the wait for minions point. If they want to stick around, they've got the 5 versus 4 advantage for another 30 seconds. But they are against an EFG team of 4 members here. He engages on Nika, dashes in, but swallowed alive. He has to force out Satman. Finds the pick, the counter engages beautiful onto the Soul Laner, and Dardes gets poked out significantly as well. The Highland Ravens, they're looking to chase back.
Lasbra behind the entirety of the Ravens, keeping them guessing on whether or not they can actually commit to this chase. Dardes, Mike resustaining. These walls are starting to stack up. There's a lot of poke behind those stuns. And now it's the Jade Dragons on full retreat. Everyone there has got movement speed. Can you really catch him?
He's got the teleport in, and the Sanctified Field catches Mike. But the target is on the Lasbra. He's in the back alone, it feels like, and is forced into the Batter to Hell, but he wants the damage. He might find 2 if he can get out of Hurland! Oh my goodness! Lasbra with an insane individual play takes down 2 and keeps the Jade Dragons in the fight, up pushed in the mid lane.
Jade Dragons keep both of their hunters alive, and have got plenty of sustain to play with. 60 seconds on nearest respawn from the Ravens. Zatman just used his ultimate, won't have Sanctified Field for a good long while, but the Jade Dragons, good eyes Doug, on a timer here. Gotta play fast on the Phoenix.
Peek up in 5 seconds. They'll be there to defend if they want to.
Titans
They've
hurt.
Gotta commit to this Phoenix if they want to take it. They've got 2 ADCs here, but they don't have the damage. Nika just defending the Titan right as those two Phoenixes are still down. This poke could be big though. Ravens, they turn around onto Haddix and he doesn't get up into the air. Scream, he loses the beats and he'll lose his life if they can say anything about it. Dardes finds the jungler and it's a 4-man grouping. They've got 5 minutes in the base. They have to end right now. Base race going on. Titans versus the Jade Dragons. It's the minions versus the Jade Dragons, but it will not be enough. The Jade Dragons don't need EFG, they just need a grouping, and they'll take game number 1.
Jade Dragons spend 35 minutes just losing. But when the game goes that long, when you can't get anything done with Fire Giant, you get over a few opportunities, and the Dragons shred through the front line. The Ravens, I mean, that was the most wet paper, full tank Thor elixir of defense I've ever seen.